So, welcome everyone. I'm Carrie Randabolio, Provincial Coordinator Knowledge Mobilization here at the Alzheimer's Society of BC. I'm joined today by Dr. Sarah Wu, our Strategic Lead Research. Also with us is our co op student Olivia, who'll be keeping a close eye on the chat. So, please feel welcome to pop any questions you have in the chat box, and she'll be keeping track for our discussion to follow. It's our absolute pleasure to welcome members of the Indigenous Art and Storytelling in Virtual Reality Project, collaborators Lynn Jackson and Albin Soni from the team. Lynn is a proud member of the Métis Nation of BC, with roots stemming from the Saulteaux people on the shores of Lake Manitoba. She started her working life as a registered nurse, but in the latter years was diagnosed with dementia, cutting short a career she loved. Lynn's current interests include advocating for people living with dementia and increasing awareness of Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. Alvin is in his final year of his undergraduate degree studying biomedical engineering at UBC. As a research assistant and project lead at the UBC Idea Lab, he works on projects that bring older adults into the design process, helping create technologies that are both practical and meaningful in acute and long term care. He's especially interested in the intersection of technology and healthcare, with a focus on tools that support aging in place. Alvin also has a strong background in knowledge translation, sharing research with both clinical teams and the public to inspire change and support real world implementation. We're both so grateful for you both being here today. And before I turn the floor over to our guest presenters, I wanted to acknowledge that our team is speaking to you today from our provincial office located in what we now call Vancouver. This place is the unceded and ancestral territory of the Hunkaminam and Squamish-speaking peoples, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, and has been stewarded by them since time immemorial. We encourage you to share with us in the chat the traditional territories from which you're joining us this afternoon. And again, we're so grateful to our guest presenters sharing stories of the culture and traditions on these lands. So it's now my pleasure to turn things over to Albin and Lynn, and we'll be back following the presentation to facilitate today's question and answer session.
Hello, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here today. We are from UBC Idea Lab, and today we're here to talk to you about the Indigenous VR Storytelling Project. We shortened the name a little bit so it could fit on the slide, but we're really happy to be here and excited to see how this goes. Hand it off to Lynn.
Yeah, just an addition from where I'm coming from. You guys are in Vancouver. I'm on Vancouver Island, the Wasonic, where the Wasonic peoples are territory, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you. And I think that you did really good introductions of us all. I don't know what else we can say about each other, so I think we're good
Yeah,
there.
this is us.
Yeah. We Here is our amazing Indigenous storytelling team. Our principal investigator, Lillian Hung, is a Canada Research Chair in Senior Care and the founder of UBC Idea Lab. She provides us with guidance needed to move our projects forward. Lenny Fisher is our Indigenous co-lead and one of our 3 Indigenous partners. Lenny is from the Stolo Nation in Chilliwack. Myself and Beverly Best are also core Indigenous partners for the project. I am from the Métis Nation of BC, while Beverly provides support as a member of an Indigenous community in Prince George. In addition, Albin serves as the project lead, coordinating with stakeholders and organizing research team in conducting site visits, working with patients and residents, and also making sure we meet our goals. And before we talk about the Indigenous project, we also want to take a minute to introduce our fabulous UBC Idea Lab. The Idea Lab The idea in Idea Lab stands for Innovation in Dementia and Aging. We are a multidisciplinary research group that takes a patient-oriented research approach to applying innovative technologies to the betterment of healthcare. We are over 150 members in the fields of nursing, health leadership, sciences, engineering, and more.
Thank you, Lynn. And today we're going to be talking to you about the Indigenous VR Storytelling Project. But our lab also has a lot of other projects, from really complex social robots to things like the cycling game, which promotes exercise and active living. We also have things like silent disco, which is, as you might be able to see in the image, people put on headphones and they dance silently. If you'd like to learn more about our projects, feel free to scan the QR code or just head to our website. You can also ask questions about them after as well. With that, we're going to head into this project. So, virtual reality is a really, really cool technology. It basically provides an immersive experience for the user. At our lab, we use VR, the term VR pretty loosely to mean just an immersive experience, but most commonly, VR is associated with virtual reality headsets. You might see one in the bottom left or the bottom right image there. VR headsets are pretty cool, but then you also have things like projectors, which provide an equally immersive, almost experience. Now, in addition to being really, really cool, VR has also been shown to be a pretty powerful tool to support older adults in a variety of clinical settings. However, it remains largely underutilized. And one of the main reasons for that, heading off to Lynn here.
Yes, a major contributor to low virtual reality adoption rates is a lack of cultural relevant content. This is true across the board, but especially affects Indigenous older adults. Considering that Indigenous older adults are at increased risk of experiencing social isolation due to factors like cultural and geographic separation, they stand to benefit more from innovative technologies like virtual reality.
So with this project, that's essentially the gap that we tried to target. We really look to co-create an immersive VR-based experience for Indigenous older adults. These are patients and residents in acute and long-term care. And we did the co-creation with target groups. So specifically Indigenous community members like Lynn, Lenny, Beverly, as well as you'll see in a little bit, public exhibitions and more generally Indigenous community members as well. In terms of the products of this process, we really wanted the project to focus on preserving and sharing cultural heritage through this immersive storytelling modality. So really it was Indigenous stories told by Indigenous voices.
Throughout our project, we employed a collaborative action framework, which involved bringing in various Indigenous and non-Indigenous partners to better understand the unique needs of our target groups and guide our research process accordingly. And it all started by working with our Indigenous partners to identify culturally relevant artwork meaningful to them at the UBC Museum of Anthropology. In stage one, we co-created our initial virtual reality content with Indigenous partners. Our Indigenous partners came from all over BC and from long-term care homes. Myself, Lenny, and Beverly shared our lived experience as Indigenous community members from across BC and beyond. We also had 3 Indigenous resident partners living in a long-term care home in the downtown east side partner with us as well. With all our Indigenous partners, the team first looked to understand the lived experience of Indigenous people in Canada. This involved in educational workshops as well as guided research and reflection exercises. After ensuring the research team was equipped with an appropriate skill set to work with the Indigenous population, we started off by having the Indigenous partners choose artifacts at UBC's Museum of Anthropology based on their individual experiences. After that, we looked to tell stories about these artifacts. tying them to common themes like home and identity that would serve to positively support Indigenous partners and residents in clinical settings. During the initial co-creation stage, we made improvements to the content, delivery, modality, and more.
After we had co-created our initial VR content, we then wanted to look into how we could further curate these to the unique needs of Indigenous and non-Indigenous older adults, as well as other stakeholders who are actually living in these clinical settings. To that end, we conducted 3 rapid learning cycles. Each rapid learning cycle took place over about 2 to 3 weeks, and it involved us going to our clinical sites. So twice a week, we visited one long-term care home as well as one acute care site, actually at VGH, and we worked with older adults, whether that be patients or residents, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous, as well as healthcare staff, to understand their needs and how this type of content affected them, how we can improve the content, and more. In terms of what we actually did in these site visits, we would go to a site as a team. We would bring some goodies as well to thank everyone for the participation, which was really well received. So things like tote bags and all that. But the meat of our site visits was really having this VR headset or otherwise immersive VR experience and taking it to patients or residents, showing them the VR experience, and then asking them follow-up questions to see how that was received. How did they feel? What did they think? How could we improve based on their needs and more? Um, Based on the different rapid learning cycles, we had a rough theme so we could really focus our direction and get the most out of the experience for both parties. Rapid learning cycle one was focused more on the technological aspects of this intervention. So we asked about things like the quality of the videos, the type of the content, the VR modality specifically that was used. The rationale for focusing on tech first as opposed to the emotional side was that we understood if the technology was not up to par, it would serve as a barrier for properly engaging with the emotional piece. And that would really prevent us from understanding the cultural connection and how Indigenous and non Indigenous older adults actually felt about the content. After we had improved that to a certain degree as much as we could through Rapid Learning Cycle 1, in Rapid Learning Cycle 2, we began asking questions more focused around people's experiences, how they felt, what did they want to see more. The cultural collection connection aspect played a really big role here. In Rapid Learning Cycle 3, we at this point had gone through these, almost 6 weeks plus of iterative research. We had co-designed. We were somewhat confident as we could be in our content. So we really looked to talk to as many different stakeholders as we could. So this included Indigenous older adults, patients and residents, healthcare staff at all levels within acute and long-term care, as well as the public. And you'll see that in a second. We also took steps to show our work to the public and get their feedback. Oftentimes, research can be conducted in a bit of a vacuum of a research team. So we wanted to avoid that with this project. In addition, throughout the entirety of our project, we had weekly meetings with the team. This was including students like myself, professors, physicians, other healthcare staff, and of course, our Indigenous partners, as well as older adult patient and family partners. So we really looked to reflect on what we were doing at each stage and what we could do to improve as we move forward. And I'll just take a second here to acknowledge that there are a lot of different VO modalities that are available for this type of a project. And I alluded to it in the first slide as well about the background, but there were many patients and residents for which when we came in with the VR headset, we said, we're doing this project. They said, oh, let's try the headset. And the headset worked out perfectly for them. They enjoyed having that really close up immersive experience. But there were also a really big group of people for which the headset didn't work. Maybe there was some conditions that made it impossible for them to wear something on their head, or they just didn't like how close up it was. So to that end, we also had mounted projectors, so specifically ceiling mounted projectors that we installed at our care sites. These ceiling mounted projectors, as you can see in the image here, we show the exact same content that was shown on the headsets, just in a projector format. So this made sure that people who didn't want to or just were unable to experience the VR headsets could still engage with what we were doing. And this also opened up a really interesting group dynamic because headsets can be quite an individual experience, especially the type of headsets that we used. So with the projectors, multiple people were able to watch the same video. Sounds pretty interesting. There were also a subset, this was more relevant in acute care, patients who were bedridden. They were confined to their rooms and were not able to engage in the projector, which was mounted in most often the recreational room, or the headset, because oftentimes the bedridden patients were laying back. So wearing the headset would have been quite difficult for them. To that end, we were able to employ a really small mobile projector. It's literally the size of a pop can, so we call it the can projector. And it displays things and in any orientation. So someone laying on their bed can watch things that are on the ceiling. Someone who is, at an angle can watch things at an angle. This really made sure that we could engage all different types of patients and residents, regardless of people who were just able to use the headsets or just able to use a ceiling mounted projector. And that was a little bit of a side. Back to our methodology. In stage 3, we conducted a public exhibition. So the exhibition, as you can see, it already happened. It happened last month, and we basically invited a lot of different stakeholders to VGH for a few hours to experience the VR, understand what we did, and provide feedback. So we invited Indigenous, of course, Indigenous community members, but also generally older adults, physicians, healthcare staff, and really anyone who was interested in learning more. We asked questions about how they felt about the work they were doing, the type of thing that the type of implications they thought this work could have, and generally if they thought we could do anything to improve what we had already created. And Lynn already mentioned this as well, but I just wanted to really drive home the fact that throughout this entire project, ethical collaboration was really important. It was something that we did our best to uphold throughout, whatever it is that we were doing. To that end, Lenny, as you can see in the image there, provided us with a few workshops to train the research team, make sure that we were able to conduct this process in a respectful and dignified way. So we had workshops in storytelling and communication, how to tell stories without taking them on as your own, as well as how to actually go about filming for older adults. This was a huge challenge. There's a lot of unique considerations that go into play there. Things like the speed, for the narration, as you'll see in a sec, because we have some examples. The narration needs to be slow and controlled. It needs to be can't be too complex. You can't have too much detail because that can be very distracting for anybody, really. We also had our weekly reflections, as I mentioned, and a subset of our research team has been working on a scoping review. This is really driven by our Indigenous collaborators as well. And that scoping review looks to basically understand the experiences of Indigenous partners, Indigenous communities around the world in relation to virtual reality. Quite interesting. That should be maybe published in a little bit. If you have any questions, send us an email in maybe a month or so.
Before we talk about what we've learned, here is an example of a video we co-created with our Indigenous partners. I actually narrated this one myself. The video discusses Bill Reed's sculpture, The Raven and the First Man. Min.
Let me know if you could hear this, everybody.
Welcome to the virtual reality experience of the Raven and the First Men sculpture, captured by the UBC Idea Lab. The Haida have a rich history of storytelling. Animals are central to their worldview, representing family lineage, spiritual connections, and teachings passed down through generations. This sculpture, carved from yellow cedar by Haida artist Bill Reed, shows a pivotal moment in Haida oral tradition, a raven discovering the first humans hiding inside a giant clamshell. The raven is a complex figure, part creator, part trickster. The Haida people believed that long ago the world was nothing but ocean. One day, the raven, bored of endless water, flew over the waves as they receded. On Rose Spit Beach on Haida Gwaii, he heard strange sounds coming from a giant clamshell. He began to sing, beautifully, coaxing the beings inside to come out. These were the first people. Take a moment to appreciate this wonderful carving. Flowing feathers and the contrast between the smooth curves of the shell and the textured forms of the emerging humans. It captures not just a story, but a worldview where creation begins with curiosity, care, and just a little bit of mischief. In the Haida culture, it is thought that the raven is a provider and a protector. The raven is complex, creative, and always questioning the world around.
Okay. I don't know how well that worked over Zoom, but I hope it came through okay. We have, sorry here. So that was a really popular video among our participants that people work with. Everybody really loved the Raven. We'll get into that in a little bit, but here's another example we wanted to showcase. This video, it's you can see it in the background here. It's showcasing the Haida Village recreation by Bill Reed as well, and this time with Doug Cranmer. This is the outside of UBC's Museum of Anthropology. So if you ever go to the museum, you will see this place outside of the main area. So highly recommend you take a visit if you have the chance.
This place is a story in itself. Mountains watch over the horizon, and here, tall and carved with meaning, stand the totem poles. We are on the unceded territory of the Musqueam people. For thousands of years, they have lived here, sustained by these forests, waters, and cedar trees. In front of us is a longhouse, built in the Haida style. Longhouses were more than just shelter. They were places of gathering where communities met, shared meals, told stories, and made decisions together. Often, like the one we see here, a totem pole stood just outside the entrance. These poles are not just art. Each figure carved into the wood represents ancestors, histories, and the living presence of culture. Each part of this place holds meaning. As we step into the Museum of Anthropology, we begin a journey into these stories.
All right. I will take a second here just to say that those transitions were removed. This is version 2 of the video. So we removed those transitions when showing them to actual older adults because they were quite disorienting, especially if you're wearing the headsets. Now, moving on now to what we've actually learned so far. I'll emphasize the so far bit because we are still conducting our data collection and analysis. We're actually wrapping up Rapid Learning Cycle 3 right now. So most of this are the insights we've gained just from the work we've done so far, but you can expect to get a lot more detail in the coming months as we explore this as a team. So first and foremost, for Indigenous older adults, there was really a deep resonance with the videos. Whether or not, within this community, there was such a complex and different amount of cultures and different groups of peoples, but we found that when talking with Indigenous older adults from different bands and different groups, there was really a deep pride in the fact that these videos were being created and the content itself people really, really connected with. Many of the Indigenous patients and residents we talked to, they had some experience with Indigenous-centered programs in healthcare, but for many of them, for pretty much all of them actually, this was the first time that a research unit or some organization had come to them with this project idea and had looked to co-create something on the scale that we did. So there was firstly a really, really positive reaction to the project as a whole. Many Indigenous older adults, all of them, they really enjoyed the fact that we were going about this project, making the videos, and for them taking part in the co-creation as they were seeing it, that was a really valuable experience for them. That's what we were told. In terms of the content itself, from Rapid Learning Cycle 3 to Rapid Learning Cycle 1 across the board, we've seen really high reported feelings of belonging, feeling seen. Cultural reconnection was a big thing, and that's really what we wanted to achieve. And from what we've seen so far, that has come through very, very strong. I'm going to hand it off here to Lynn to talk about an example as well.
We'd like to share a really powerful story from one of our Indigenous long-term care partners about a video that she directed. You'll get to see the video shortly. Angie, not her real name, is an Indigenous partner and a resident that we worked with. Angie lived a difficult life. She was really forthcoming with her upbringing and was really proud of her Indigenous culture. She mentioned it played a formative role in her childhood, but as she grew up and moved away from the reservation she was living on, her Indigenous roots began to fade. This project served as an opportunity for her to reconnect with her roots and share her history. After we had co-created the video, Angie loved it. She really enjoyed the viewing experience, as well as the story that was being told. As a member of the Bear Clan, she said that after creating this video, she was reminded that the Bear Clan is my clan. However, she also started to think about other Indigenous members who may have lost touch with the heritage. She was really focused on the fact that Indigenous peoples are just peoples and that they need an opportunity to focus on and form relationships with their history. She had such a deep pride in her heritage after seeing the video and truly believed that other Indigenous older adults, patients and residents would really benefit. Something that she talked about frequently was the lack of Indigenous resources in care settings, which she believed to be a barrier in mental and physical well-being for Indigenous community members. Angie saw this work as a means to fill that gap. And just to reiterate, the video that you're going to see next, Angie she wrote the words for it. So we'll play that now. She talks about her experience that she had with a real life bear while she was growing up.
A story from an Indigenous elder.
I am from the Bear Clan in Saskatchewan. I am a bear whisperer. I know it in my heart. When I was younger, I went to school. I used to be left out all the time. My kukum, my grandma, put a bear stuffy toy that was a couple inches big in my sleeves to keep me company. She said, "Bring the bear with you." When I was a kid, I used to babysit in my tribe. I would think about a bear story for them. I always went into the woods. There was a bear encounter that I remember. I was about 8 to 9 years old. In my culture, everyone runs when they see a bear. I thought that I should run, but I didn't. The environment was so quiet. There was no sound around me. There was a blackish-brown bear. He was the same size as me. I was scared, but for some reason, I sat down, but he came over to me. I could see that he was still a baby. He scared me at first, but I realized that the Creator put me there at that time, at that place for a reason. I didn't run. I just sat down, looked at the bear. When I sat down, he crawled right up to me. I had friends with me and they were ready to go and said, "The bear's going to eat you." I said, "No, it's my friend." I stayed there for a while. I am from the Bear Clan. I am a bear whisperer. I know it in my heart.
Linda's story was definitely one of a very powerful learning and outcome of this project. The way that she connected and worked with us was something that the entire research team was blown away by. So it shows that there's real value to doing this type of work. I'll
And
also
Albin, I just want to interject there that we were able to watch Linda watching the video. And for me as a woman, as an older woman, with Indigenous background, to see her just come to life and to that speak to her was just such a powerful thing. It brought tears to my eyes. It was really quite something.
I'm so sorry to everybody here. We, as Lynn said, when Linda was watching the video, so her name's on Angie, it's Linda. We forgot it was in the credits there. She really resonated with it. And although we can't share it, as Lynn said, it was such a powerful experience. Um, and I'll also just take a second here to say that for all of the videos that we did create, especially for Linda's, we created two versions of the videos. One of them was a two-dimensional version, so like what you saw here. This type of video went on a projector. That's why it was a bit close up. It was showcasing the different parts of the artifact. We also had a different version of the video that was meant for the headsets. So those videos were a bit slower. They were zoomed out, and it was designed for somebody who would be stationary with the experience on their face, just in case you thought that might be a bit disorienting. I'll move on here to the more learnings, but if anyone has any questions about Linda's story and that side of things, I really encourage you to ask it in the Q&A. But in terms of the non-Indigenous older adults, originally when we started this project, we thought that the non-Indigenous older adults were mostly going to be involved in the first rapid learning cycle that was very technology heavy. But we were blown away because there was a subset of people who were really interested in the VR. They didn't really know much about Indigenous content or communities. They were just curious about the VR. Those people, as well as the people who knew about, they had some background information. Both groups were just incredibly curious about Indigenous cultures after seeing these videos. They wanted to learn more. We were surprised how much they wanted to learn more. And they had so many opinions on how this types of work could be used. They were really surprised that we were even doing this project because they thought it was kind of a topic that no one talked about. And overall, it improved. That they were happy every time we came. They wanted to learn more. Every time we would go to the sites, the non-Indigenous old adults would ask us, "Do you have anything new we can see? Is there any videos that we can see?" One patient in particular, she loved seeing our bear videos. Excuse me. So when Linda actually came up with her video and we filmed it for the patients in the hospital setting, it blew her away. She, like Lynn, she was very emotional when we showed her that video. So there's so many different benefits here to non-Indigenous and Indigenous communities as well. One thing that the non-Indigenous population really highlighted, we were surprised, is they wanted more interactive experiences, stuff that they could directly interface with, specifically for the people who are watching VR. And I'll talk about how we address that need in a second. In addition to non-Indigenous older adults, we also talk with staff. So staff members, we had the chance to do one focus group with them, about 6 people. Uh, we are planning 3 to 4 more focus groups. So this is where we're wrapping up the data collection process. But so far, we've seen that staff experience difficulty in providing culturally relevant care to Indigenous patients. Many staff are not from Canada, where they just don't have that knowledge. So for them, it was quite difficult to work with Indigenous patients who might have specific needs, cultural needs especially. With that said, the staff really valued support and resources offered by an Indigenous specific program like this because they recognize that Indigenous community members have their own needs, and it was their duty and their responsibility to provide that care, and they wanted to be equipped to do that without adding too much burden on their already incredible workload. So for the interactive portion, one of our team members, Ganesh, he created this VR drum game. So for the people who are watching the headsets, they were also allowed to play this game. The game, I'll give you a little overview. Maybe I'll play it, so it's a bit surprising. Oh, my internet might have been failing here. That's okay. I can just explain it. So pretty much, as you can see, there is a drum in the center of the game, and there was also a bear there for a second. This experience allowed the user to be transported to this place. You see, it's a forest, and they actually got to play the drum sitting there. So there's 2 drumsticks that the user can pick up. In our second version of the game, after our second rapid learning cycle, we changed it so the user doesn't have to pick up the drum. The drum is just like glue stuck to their hands. And the intention was people older adults especially who might have low dexterity in their fingers, they wouldn't have to hold a button to pick up the drumsticks. But what the user could do is actually play the drums. So dum 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 dum. It's in the video, but I don't know if it'll load, unfortunately. This was by far one of the most well-received parts of this project by Indigenous patients, non-Indigenous patients, staff. They were blown away by the fact that it was an output of a research project and not a company's official product. Everyone loved it, and we had a lot of people, surprisingly large amount of people, for whom music played a really important role in their lives growing up. And for them, having this drum and the ability to play, seeing the bear, usually the bear gets up on its hind legs and it does a little roar, that really blew them away. It created a very immersive experience for the users and definitely was something that was a benefit. For the staff, they as we talked, as we mentioned, they wanted more resources. They wanted to provide the care, but they needed more resources, more training in terms of how to work with Indigenous older adults. So we created these pocket cards, quote unquote. They're about the size of a lanyard, so you can literally put them in your lanyard or your wallet if you'd like. And they provide some right away some short information about our project, about the content that we have. So that QR code isn't live, but it goes to a folder with a bunch of different resources on the videos that we filmed, as well as motivations for the project. So if a staff member were to be talking with an Indigenous patient and the staff member was showing them the videos that we created, they could use this pocket card, scan the QR code, and immediately get more information so they could engage with the Indigenous community member on a deeper level. This opens up, well, we hope it will open up a lot more doors for communication within those healthcare settings. And it's something that, as we plan more staff focus groups, we're looking to further improve and modify based on the staff's needs. And the public exhibition, as you can see, everyone's smiling. It was a really good time. There were a lot deeper learnings to come from this, but we just recently had it, and at a surface level, everybody was really engaged. They really enjoyed the fact that we're doing this project. Most of the attendees had no idea, that this was a need or a concern. So for them, it was also an educational experience. But we saw across the board people were very engaged. They saw really good amount of potential with this type of work. Like I said, most people had no experience unless were affiliated with our lab. They didn't really think of the application of VR in this context. So they were blown away by how impressive this could be and how useful it could be for Indigenous and non-Indigenous older adults. We also got a decent amount of feedback in terms of the experience, what we could do to improve, edit the videos, and that's stuff that we're going to be implementing as we go forward. Really briefly here, a timeline, just in case you're curious. As I mentioned, we're nearing the end of the project, but we're wrapping up data collection, beginning data analysis. As we move forward, we'll be presenting at a variety of conferences and focusing on knowledge translation. So sharing the learnings. And as for why we're sharing the learnings, we're hoping really to create a roadmap for similar groups or research units to work with Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities, specifically for older adults in clinical settings. We're hoping that people will see this project, they'll hear the voices and experiences of our Indigenous partners like Lynn and the people that we actually worked with, and they'll see that doing this type of work can create a real positive impact for Indigenous communities as well as non-Indigenous older adults too. So if you have any ideas, we'd love to hear your thoughts on how this might be done. We're always looking to improve, and if anybody has any connections or interests in this space, feel free to ask us afterwards. Furthermore, for the staff, there's really a gap in what staff need to provide care for Indigenous older adults and what they currently have. So we're hoping work like this can bridge that gap and equip staff better to work with Indigenous older adults in a way that satisfies the needs of both groups. Lastly, because we're not targeting just one community, not just Indigenous older adults or older adults in general, not just staff, for example, we are creating overall a more inclusive and safe environment within these clinical settings to promote engagement and social connection. Now, in terms of what's happening next, data analysis that is coming up soon. You can expect to hear a lot more detailed results from us very shortly. Knowledge translation is a big thing that we're planning. So stuff like this, as I mentioned earlier, conferences, publications, all the sort. lastly, we're hosting an Indigenous public exhibition. So we're hoping to partner with an Indigenous community center and showcase the contents to specifically members of the Indigenous communities who, may not always be in acute care or long-term care and might not have that experience. We're hoping this will give us an entirely new perspective to make the videos even more engaging and relevant. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and listening. We have been Albin and Lynn from UBC Idea Lab. Excited to take any questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lynn and Albin. That was truly like innovative project that you've been working on. So thank you so much for sharing this with us. Um, I want to invite our participants to share in the chat a question that you have for our presenters. And if you don't have a question, then maybe a comment about something that you found inspirational or anything new that you learned today.
Giving everyone a moment to reflect, I wanted to share something. I thought it was so interesting the different ways of projection and viewing the experiences. I've worn a VR headset myself. Normally, I wear corrective lenses, so usually glasses, and trying to get the VR headset calibrated for my prescription, I found it really nauseating. So I thought it was very interesting to see how small a projector could be, like the pop can sized one. Um, and I was curious if your team would consider preparing some discussion questions for group programming.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. One of the goals with this project is really to promote dialogue, conversation within Indigenous groups, but also between different communities. So for sure, that type of work would be something we're interested in doing. And for the glasses, it's that was a huge concern for many people. Recently, we upgraded to the MetaQuest 3 headsets, so their eye holes are pretty big. So then you can put really big glasses. I also I saw a comment in the chat about the nauseating VR just now. I think you mentioned as well, Kari. And Lynn, if you have any thoughts on this as well, feel free to jump on. But we've seen that usually members of the research team will have those experiences. It can be motion sickness associated with the VR, which is pretty common for most people. But I don't think we've actually had any older adults say they don't want to experience VR because of the motion sickness. So that was something that we were all very, very surprised about. Like within our clinical settings, I mean, we haven't had any older adults say, "I'm feeling nauseated," or "We don't want to. I don't want to watch this because of the motion sickness." So,
Uh, And Albin, I think that's because of Lenny's teaching, his
mm,
photography teaching, because in a previous project, there had been some VR that we had, as older people, had watched, and it was quite nauseating. And I think because it went too fast and wasn't geared for older people. Yeah.
oh, a benefit of the project already.
We have a question from one of our participants. Will people be able to watch this like they watch TV?
Mm.
So yeah, maybe this question is around like the footage that you've shot that you've prepared for this medium. Um, Wondering if it would be maybe transposable for viewing on a TV.
I would think so, yeah, for sure. Actually, we use YouTube, so all the videos that I showed, they're available on YouTube. Um, they are unlisted at the moment, just because when we were doing the research, some of it had some private information and they were not finished. As we finish the project, we will most likely make them public for everyone to view. But when we use a projector in our sites, we just went on the projector and we searched up YouTube and then click the video from our account. So if you had a TV at home that had access to YouTube, you could totally watch it with no problems.
And Alvin, if the videos do end up on YouTube, would that be on the Idea Labs YouTube channel?
Yeah, yeah, if that does happen, we'll share it with you as well.
Yeah, I'd be happy to promote that when those are ready to be shared. Amazing. We've got a question. Um, Chris, I'm curious to know what equipment you use to capture the images, and is there intention to do more videos like this?
I feel bad answering all the questions, but since it's a tech one, I got this one. Specifically, we used an Insta360 X3 and X4 camera. They were on sale a while back. Um, they are pretty nice, not too hard to use. They have a pretty nice user interface as well. So we use those to film, and it comes with a little tripod stick you can hold, or you can just hold the camera in your hand. Not a big problem. For our editing process, we used that camera comes with its own editing softwares, so that's pretty nice. It's for free. But then we also use Adobe Premiere Pro, which was really high end, heavy duty. And in terms of the intention to do more videos, at the moment, no, because we're beginning data collection. However, never say never. If the opportunity arises to continue this project, or as Lynn said, we had a previous project that was VR based as well, we could create new videos for that.
Amazing. Thank you. And we've got another question from the audience. Could you share what is the advantage of using VR tech over just like ordinary videos? I can imagine it is a very innovative tech for seniors. Also, how therapeutic is the experience to participants, especially those living with a cognitive impairment?
Maybe I'll ask Lynn a modified version of the question. Lynn, do you think that VR is helpful for older adults compared to just
Mm.
watching something on your phone or laptop?
Oh, I think, many older adults are inquisitive. They want to see the new technology and they want to give it a try. So sure. And like you said, some people didn't like it and some people loved it. So it's, and luckily we had different modalities to be able to show um, everybody something that they were comfortable with.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the different modalities part I think is key. Some people liked VR, and for them it was a very uh, it was a very beneficial application of that technology. Some people just like the content and they wanted different ways to experience it. So we did have like laptops, we had CAN projectors, also the ceiling mounted projector to encourage group participation. So that added an interesting aspect there about how people experience things together. So
Mm.
although we say VR, we cast a pretty wide net in terms of how we actually work with older adults.
Amazing. And just following up with that question, wonder if you can speak to the therapeutic value of like watching these meaningful videos and this wonderful narration for people um, um, living with cognitive impairment, living with dementia.
I think that it just, especially if Indigenous people watching Indigenous artifacts, it just brings back wonderful memories from their childhood and things that they might not have seen for a while, and just anything that can bring memories and cause be able to make a person want to have more conversation and stimulate conversation. I guess that was what I mean. That's all good for cognitive health.
Absolutely.
Lynn answered that perfectly. I have nothing to add there. Yeah.
Um, and we've got one more question here from Anna. They say sounds like a certain amount of equipment would have to be brought in order for to experience that the VR experience. It might be a budget issue. Um, um, Anna's also wondering, who, if this technology was to stay in, say, a long-term care home, who would be the one mediating the technology for residents? Would it be um, nursing staff? Who do you imagine when you think about this, like being available in more spots? How do you think this would be administered?
Great question there. I'll answer the second one first. So immediately I can say that for this project, we've been working mostly with the rec staff at acute care.
Mm.
And so this project has been going on since about a year now. So that's not a very long-term observation, but I can say that we've been working mostly with the rec staff. But we had a previous project called Co-Create VR. If you go to our website, you'll see a lot of information about that, there's some data analysis has been conducted, so you can search up the papers if you're curious. But that project has been going on. It was going on for almost 2 years, and we've seen that primarily in long-term care and acute care, it's the rec staff who use it. We've actually begun the talk of giving some of our headsets to the sites that we worked previously because they had such a good success rate, and it really caused it was a good benefit for the residents and patients. So mostly the rec staff. However, we want to make this technology accessible enough that, if a nursing aide wanted to, or a family member who was just visiting their father or mother wanted to use it, they'd be able to pick it up and use it right away. But that's a conversation for the future.
And Albin, not me not knowing the technical part of it so much, how much would one of those pop can
Mm.
projectors be like?
So, financial stuff is always a barrier, especially with this type of work. However, I can say, so when we bought the CAN projector, we bought that a few years ago. It was around $500. However, that same CAN projector now, I think is in the $200 range. So as technology has developed, it's getting increasingly more affordable, which is pretty nice. Um, in terms of the camera that we use to film the VR videos, that one is a bit more expensive. I think we bought it on sale for $600. It did come with a lot of equipment, but it can definitely be a barrier to access. So time will tell if it gets more affordable for communities as we move on.
Mm. But like you said, yeah, it's just as we move forward with developments, tech seems to be more affordable. So that's we're headed in the right
Mm.
direction. Thank you. Carrie, I'm just doing a time check with you. Um, do you think we've got time for one more question?
Yeah, if there's any more questions that emerge from the chat or Sarah or our team, if there's any other thoughts. That last question, I was thinking about it as well with yeah, who's is it a visit from the Idea Lab team, or is it something that you can help build capacity to run those programs in house? And I think you did a great job sort of laying the landscape for where you're at right now and how you hope things will go in the future.
I think that was super important what you just mentioned there, Kari, building capacity. That I think is a long-term goal for hopefully for the staff and the members of that specific healthcare community to be able to employ this on their own without any difficulties.
I've got just like one other question for you both because this is sort of like new territory, I think. And what was one thing that really surprised you that you took away from this project? Just curious to know.
Hmm. Lynn, you can go first if you want.
Yeah, I don't know. I think how well it was received, really, and that I was just so thrilled that the people were so amenable to watching and learning more, and yeah.
Wonderful.
Probably the same, very similar for me. For me, my background is in engineering. I'm an undergraduate student, so seeing how this type of technology could actually be applied for older adults was very, very surprising. For me, technology, meets some robots or something complex. So seeing it actually help people in this way and people receiving it so well
Mm.
was really, really interesting to see.
Amazing. Thank you. If it's all right with you now, maybe we might transition towards just some um, other agendas for the webinar before we close things down for this afternoon. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay. Um, bear with me, everyone. So sorry. Okay.
And a huge thank you again to Lynn and Albin. Um, we in our helpful resources document that Michael shared in the chat, there's also the link to this project's website, or the page on the Idea Lab website. So if you're looking to connect, there's more information there as well.
Thanks, Carrie. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Albin, and thank you, Lynn. This was truly such a pleasure to have you on Research Connects for this month. I'm just going to move our attention over to some research recruitment opportunities. So our team supports research recruitment both provincially but also nationally and internationally. And today I've got 4 opportunities to share with all of you. So the first is researchers at the University of Waterloo and the University of Alberta are wanting feedback from people living with dementia and care partners on a mobile app called the Guard.io. And it was developed to support community safety and help prevent people from going missing. So participating in the study would involve trying out the app and then providing feedback on what you think about it. So if this is something that is piquing your interest, please reach out to Dr. Cruzette. His email is there, miguelcr@ualberta.ca, or you can give him a call at 780-492-6104. The next opportunity is a project out of the University of Victoria. And this project is exploring and understanding why persons living with dementia would request MAID from the perspective of a family caregiver. So they're looking to speak to that family caregiver. They're interested in learning more about factors like unmet care needs or transitions into long term care. Participation would involve a 1 hour interview, either in person or over Zoom. And you can reach out to Andre's research coordinator, Ashley, if you want to find out more. And her email is there, aberard@uvic.ca. And the last 2 opportunities are from Professor Jennifer Bombish at UBC School of Nursing. And she's got 2 exciting opportunities. The first study is on the impact of climate change on older adults' mental health. So given the fact that there's just more frequent climate-related weather events we've been experiencing in BC, Dr. Bombish and her team are looking to understand more about how these weather events impact older adults' mental health. Participating in the study would mean sharing photos that illustrate how climate change impacts mental health. There will also be opportunities to join a workshop to share experiences with people involved with climate change policy and healthcare planning. And that other opportunity with Dr. Jennifer Bombish is recruiting for care partners living with dementia in the Metro Vancouver area who would like to participate in a focus group on the impact of climate-related weather emergencies like heat events or wildfires or flooding. And the intention here is to identify those key strategies to help families better cope when these weather events occur. And really, they're trying to build climate resilience among older adults in BC and beyond. So if you'd like to reach out for either of those opportunities, please email gero@nursing.ubc.ca or give Jennifer and her team a call at 604 822 7496. Okay. And if you're wanting more information about dementia or wondering about our programs and services here at the Society, please give our first link Dementia Helpline a call. Our operators are able to support you in English, Punjabi, Hindi, Urdu, Cantonese, and Mandarin. And before we close things down for today, we so appreciate hearing your feedback on how we can make Research Connects webinars even better. So we're going to try something new. We've been piloting. Instead of sending out our regular SurveyMonkey link to get your feedback, we're going to use a poll that will appear in your chat. So if you wouldn't mind, and hopefully it's come up on your screens now, if you wouldn't mind just taking a moment, there are 3 questions we'd love for you to answer. We hope that you'll join us for our next Research Connects webinar on Wednesday, November 26th from 2 to 3 p.m. And that's entitled The Science of Better Sleep with Elizabeth Keys. So, good sleep is essential for health and well being at every stage of life, but many people struggle to get the rest that they need. Research shows sleep disturbances like sleep apnea or insomnia are risk factors for developing dementia. So we invite you to join Dr. Elizabeth Keys, who heads up UBC Okanagan's Slumber Lab, for this innovative session. Learn why sleep is important for brain health and how to better manage common sleep challenges. You can find additional details about the webinar, including a registration link at owlsbc.org/webinars closer to the date. And of course, you can always visit our YouTube channel to watch previous recordings of Research Connects webinars. And we hope you've enjoyed your time with us today. If you're interested in contributing to our knowledge on dementia, we encourage you to get involved in a research project. Engaging in research activities can make a difference in your community now and for future generations. So if you'd like to find out how you can get involved, please visit the I Want to Participate in Research section of our website, allsbc.org/research. And we always love to hear if you have any questions or concerns about today's topic, you can shoot us an email, research@alzheimersbc.org, and Carrie and I will get back to you. So I just want to extend a heartfelt thank you. Thank you, Lynn and Alvin. This was such a wonderful presentation. We so appreciate you being here with us today. And thanks to everyone for calling in and joining us. We are really looking forward to seeing you next time and wishing you all the best and take good care.